Hello fellow artist, Irit here. Welcome to another video. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Irit. I'm an intuitive artist based in Austria in Europe, and on my channel I share my artsy adventures. This video is focused on my daily practice and finding joy in the way that you create. I hope you will enjoy this video. If you do, please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment. If not, give it a thumbs down so I know what you like to see. And of course, as always, I invite you to subscribe and ring that bell so you are notified every time I post a new video. I am currently in the midst of running my Joyful Art Habit course, which is all about creating a daily habit that really brings you joy and works with your schedule. Now, when I created the course, I used watercolors and pastels and pencils for my personal joyful habit, but since then I have been exploring other media as well. I like to jump from one thing to the other. I used to say obsessed, and now that I've learned a little bit more about neurodivergent people, I prefer the term hyper-focused. And kind of reading about these things, I really gotten to understand a lot of my behaviors, things that I've dealt with, all my life. And I just thought I was, well, all kinds of things, messy, disorganized, which I am, but I get into something and I buy all the things and I get obsessed with it. And then one day I just completely lose interest and move to the next thing. And I used to kind of really feel bad about it. And then I would see, for example, like I have, insane amounts of yarn right now, which is okay because I went back to crocheting. So I'm using the yarn and I will, go through my stash and continue to declutter and donate and all those things. But now that I kind of understand that that's just the way that my brain works, I have, of course, certain things I don't think, this is like an excuse for bad behavior or just accepting everything. But being able to understand this and kind of letting myself really lean into these hyper-focused, obsessive modes without pulling the trigger on wasting a lot of money, which is where I feel this behavior becomes problematic for me personally. I kind of, now that I finally see the pattern, I feel like if I just kind of hold on, enjoy obsessing, watching endless YouTube videos about a specific appliance or, learning everything that I can about a certain hobby, if I just hold on a little bit with the big spending, chances are I'll move on to something else soon enough. And it has helped me. Now, certain things survive all these things. For example, painting and arting, and specifically probably watercolors is really the one medium that I keep coming back to because it fits my personality and all my resistance and all my blocks with just like sitting down and painting. A lot of it has to do with needing like a complicated setup or pouring all your paints on your palette, all kinds of things that other mediums sometimes require. And for me, this is a real reason not to deal with them. So watercolors, I feel like have the kind of, it's a win-win-win, and you have a beautiful medium. Setup is super easy. If you have a palette you like, all you need is to open it, spray it a little bit with water. It's ready to go. You have all of your colors at your fingertips. It's relatively clean. It's water soluble. Everything washes off. Your brushes don't get ruined if you don't clean them properly, and everything is just so much easier with watercolors. But I definitely see the limitations in them, and that's why I've been exploring other mediums. I also enjoy different qualities that different mediums have, and this is my current gouache palette. Now, what I love about these, first of all, the palette is pretty nice. One of my issues with gouache is the fact that they are not, I feel, as suitable to be used re-wetted, reconstituted as watercolors are. Most gouache paint will dry and crumble and, fall off your palette or make a big mess. So it's not as user-friendly as watercolors, but this palette is quite tight when you close it, and if you regularly spray it with water, your gouache paint will remain very easily workable. And now it's time for something completely different. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you didn't, then I'm sorry. You probably won't see that in future videos, but I just wanted to share and maybe inspire you. I will leave the details in the description box. So, this painting process was very, very joyful. I have been, I don't want to say struggling, but just kind of, a little bit struggling to get back into my routine. I was on vacation with my kids for 2 months, and then my parents were here visiting, and I wanted to spend some time with them because they live in a different country. And so it's been really difficult for me to get back into working and creating. But having my go-to joyful art habit is so helpful when, I just want to get back into that routine. And I have things more or less set up. I have my table, which I try to clear at the end of my painting sessions. I have my go-to paper. I have my watercolor palette, which will make an appearance very soon because my gouache palette is not as satisfying in certain ways, and I'll tell you in a minute why. But the subject, another one of my struggles in the years that I've been painting, and I've been painting now for 2023, so probably for 6 years, almost on a daily basis now. I really struggled to find my passion, my voice, and really figuring out what it is that I actually want to paint. And a lot of it, or let's say some of it, has to do with not being very experienced and, wanting to try everything, being inspired by other artists and what they paint. I also really love color, and I really love travel, and I love flowers. So these things are always appealing to me. And then there is also a part of it is how artwork is perceived, and specifically in general, and specifically how abstract art is perceived. Or sometimes I call this decorative art, because I feel like it's very clear that not a lot of skill is required. Let's say technical skill is required to create certain types of art. But having said that, as a person with an aesthetic sense that also appreciates other people's art, I really respond to that kind of art. I don't need it to be technically complicated. I don't need to know that the artist, developed their skills for 40 years. I don't need it to be hyper realistic or anything like that, accurate, complicated, anything like that. I am happy I respond, and I'm happy when I see colors that I love, textures that draw me in, and sometimes those types of art pieces are very simple technically, and they still make me just as happy, or they make me a lot more happy than if I saw a piece like a realistic still life in oil from the 17th century or whatever. I can appreciate the skill of the artist, but that piece of art does nothing for me. I wouldn't hang it in my home. It doesn't make me happy. I just look at it and say, yes, this person was very skilled, in the same way that, I will appreciate a bridge, right? That has some serious, wonderful engineering. Kudos to mankind. If only we focused all our efforts on, building and creating beautiful things. But I don't want to hang it in my room. And then there are artists that make just lovely, colorful, whimsical, sometimes minimalistic pieces that I absolutely adore. And I have struggled with myself. Okay, you know what I mean. I have struggled to really let go and create art that just makes me happy. And for me, that has to do a lot with color. Always at the top is always color, but also just little blobs of paint, little scribbles, rainbows, dots, whatever. And then a few glimpses to my inner world, which right now is still thinking about summer days on the beach in Greece with the blue domes and the sun umbrellas and the colors of the bougainvillea, the pink bougainvillea, and the turquoise waters. All these things, they're in my head. And I love creating this piece. And I look at it, it makes me so happy. And I know a lot of people will look at this and say either, this is trash, this is not art, my 4-year-old could do that, like all these things that we're so used to hearing. And absolutely, like, you might see absolutely no value in this, but that's okay, because I create art for me and for those that like it and appreciate it. And art is very, very subjective. And yeah, that's kind of it. So this was me just sitting, having some fun. Let's talk about watercolors for a little bit. I really enjoy the opaque nature and kind of that creamy texture of gouache paint. I struggle with the fact that it really doesn't granulate, except for, I think I have one color, Cascade Green gouache paint from Daniel Smith, which I absolutely love. The Daniel Smith gouache is amazing. It's fantastic. It lends itself beautifully to being used dry, that you reconstitute it. I currently have in my water palette, I switched my regular watercolor buff titanium with the Daniel Smith gouache buff titanium because till now it doesn't crumble and, you know, just falls off like other gouache paints. The formulation is fantastic. It is more expensive, especially if you are not in the US, and the color range is quite limited. I want them to come out with some, I don't know, hybrid versions of all of their super granulating paints in gouache form, because that's a lot of fun. But I needed my watercolors to get the full effect, and then some colors that I don't have in gouache. I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care. Bye bye.